Welcome to the CERN Control Centre. My name's Harriet, and I'm here today in the nerve centre of CERN's accelerator complex. I'm here with Mirko. He's one of the LHC engineers, and he's in charge of the Large Hadron Collider. We're running this live today because we've reached a fantastic milestone over the weekend. For the first time in 2017, we got proton beams into the LHC. And that means that we've marked the start of operations for this year.
Yes, it is indeed.
So this live is part of our hashtag What's Up LHC series. So you can ask your questions in the comments below the Facebook Live or using the hashtag. And you can ask your comments about anything from the LHC restart, the operations of the machine, anything you want to know about CERN, and Mirko and some of our other experts will be here to help us answer the question shortly. So first I'll explain where we are. This is the CERN Control Centre, and just below my feet, 100 meters below, is the LHC. And in this room, in each corner of the room, there's an island with computers, like you see behind me, that's dedicated to each machine in the accelerator complex. This is the LHC corner with the island, and here's Mirko, who can tell us what happened for the restart this year. So thanks for joining us, Mirko.
Thanks to you.
We're live today talking about the restart of the LHC from the weekend in the CCC. First things first, can you just explain a bit about the LHC? What is it?
Yes, well, the LHC is the most powerful accelerator ever built. It, as you said, it is 100 meters underground. It is 27 kilometers long. It's a circular machine, and it accelerates particles up to the tremendous energy of 6.5 tera electron volt. It is the highest energy ever reached in a laboratory in an accelerator. So the LHC is smashing particles, two beams, one against the other, at this tremendous energy, producing energy in the center of mass of 13 tera electron volts. And these smashes beams that are formed of 2,000, say roughly 3,000 bunches, with an intensity per bunch of roughly 100 billions of particles per bunch. So a lot of particles, but in reality we are speaking about nanograms of matter that is colliding every second inside the 4 experiments of the LHC.
Great. So people might be a bit confused. They've heard that the LHC is starting. They know that we've already done lots of work. So why is it restarting? What happened that it wasn't on?
Yeah, so essentially every year at Christmas we stop the machine. All the complex is stopping, not only the LHC, but also the injectors are stopping because we want to carry on with maintenance that we cannot do during the year when the machines are operating. So it's typically a stop where we do maintenance, upgrade of some systems, and indeed this year we profited to do as well some important activities on the LHC. First of all, CMS, they were changing part of their inner detector, but also on the LHC side, on the machine side, we were changing one of the magnets of the LHC. It is not an easy task, first of all, because the magnets are cooled down to very low temperature, 1.9 Kelvin, minus 271 Celsius, so you need to warm up. The machine is divided in 8 sectors, and we have to warm up an entire sector to be able to replace one of the almost 2,000 magnets that we have in the machine, because well, we had to replace it because last year during operation we detected a possible fault, electrical fault in it. Okay. So for precaution we decided to replace it, and that's what we did. We replaced it, so we warmed up the sector, we did all the activities, we cooled it down, and then we carried on with all the tests that follow this such an important activity. This was the most important activity, but there were thousands of activity going on into the tunnel, as I say, for
upgrades and maintenance,
essentially, yes. That ensure that the machine can run safely all along the year without any long interruption.
Great. So the end of the technical stop and the start of beams was Saturday.
Yep.
What happened? How did the operation go?
Okay, so Saturday once more we could circulate beams into the LHC. We started a bit later than foreseen. Actually, we started in reality with, if I'm not wrong, 3 days of that advance on the original planning. We were supposed to restart the LHC on the 1st of May. and on Saturday, 2 days before, yes, we got already beams into circulating into the LHC. What we did, we injected one beam at a time, stopping in several positions on the machine. What we do, we put collimators in. The collimators are passive elements that are put close to the beam to clean the beam and having always a very tiny beam circulating around. So we put in different positions collimators in, so the beam was stopping on the collimator, so we were measuring the trajectory, correcting, then opening this collimator, going on the next one, and so on, and we were circulating one beam.
So it was just a test beam to make sure that everything was working properly.
Testing that all the instrumentation was working fine. Essentially nothing was changed with respect to last year. And we did it in roughly 40 minutes for one beam and the same amount of time for the other beam. And at 8 o'clock in the evening on Saturday, both beams were circulating happily, and then we captured them with the radio frequency, and then another year of intense activities is starting.
Great. So this happens every year after the winter shutdown. What's different about this year? What are you hoping to achieve in 2017?
Okay, so essentially the very little is going to change with respect to last year. While it is not actually the case, we are going to change optics, we are going to change many tiny details. But essentially the performance of the machine should be more or less the same that we reached last year. We'll probably be able to increase a bit more the luminosity, which is the number of collisions per second that we have in the high luminosity experiments. But most of the parameters will stay as last year. For example, the energy of course is not changing. We were working at 6.5 TeV last year. It will be the same this year. Nevertheless, we'll squeeze down the beam, we'll reduce the size of the beam inside the experiments even more, and so we hope at increasing even further the luminosity of the LHC. What we aim at achieving is again, hopefully, another great year in collection of data for the experiments.
A record-breaking year again.
Yes, last year already we collected quite a huge number of information. So hopefully with the new quantity we'll maybe be able to, I don't know, up to the experiment to say, but maybe to discover a new particle or a new phenomenon, physical phenomena or whatever. So on our side, we are trying to do the best to give the best beams, the maximum number of collisions to the experiments, and then up to the experiments to tell us if there is something hidden there.
Great. Thanks very much, Mirko. We'll be coming back to Mirko in a few minutes. He's going to help us answer some of the questions that you have. So just a reminder to add any questions you might have come up with from what Mirko has been saying into the comments below Facebook Live. We're now going to go and speak to Laurette. She's just started her shift as engineer in charge. She's just taken over from Mirko, who finished his shift about 40 minutes ago. And we're going over to find out exactly what an engineer in charge does. So come on. Laurette, do you have time for it? So I think Laurette's just gone over to ask some questions. The trials and tribulations of being an engineer in charge in the moment. So I'm going to ask Laurette a bit about what some of these screens mean, and if you keep your questions coming, then we can talk to them and ask Laurette and Mirko some of the questions. So one of the questions, Mirko's back here.
Yes.
Could you please explain about the working of a superconducting magnet? That's from Parvati from Facebook.
So first of all, when we are speaking about magnets into the LHC, typically in an accelerator, we are not speaking about the magnets that you are used to glue on our fridge. So we are speaking about electromagnets, which are built by winding a wire in which there is current circulating, which produces a magnetic field. In the LHC, these magnets are very, very particular because they are superconducting. So the material which is used for the winding is not a normal conductor. Is not copper, but it's a superconductor. So it is super. It can bring a lot of current, producing a very high magnetic field without dissipating energy, because the superconductors below a certain temperature they lose every resistance, and so they can circulate current forever, and they don't dissipate this current, they don't warm up, and this is the advantage of using a superconductor. But of course, the drawback is that they need to be cooled down, as I said earlier, to a very low temperature, which is the temperature of superfluid helium.
And one of the other questions we've just got through is, what are you guys actually doing today? So what are you testing at CERN?
So the moment when we inject the first beam till the very first collisions, we have to carry on with a lot of tests. We have to essentially test that all the systems are working fine. We have to test that the beams can be circulated, that the beam can be accelerated. So all the details, all the instrumentation is working fine. All the phases in the cycle of injection, ramping, squeezing, all the phases work fine. And this is what this is just a part of what we are doing. We're doing today.
And is that a bit what we see on the screens, or?
Okay. Yeah. If you look on the first bottom screen on the left, you see the bump over there. This is beam 1, and indicates the presence of at least one bunch inside the first ring. You see it, in fact, in the bottom part, in first position, the blue line, vertical blue line, says that there is one bunch in bucket 1, in position, the first position, which is also seen there. That is called the mountain range, and it's the longitudinal density of particles. You have to imagine that we are thinking about having, let's say, looking longitudinally along the ring. And in the first position, we have particles which are indicated by the bump, a Gaussian distribution of particles over there. It is the same for beam 2, but we don't see the same bump because we are in a different bucket, in a different position.
Okay.
So we are focusing there on the first position, and there is nothing on the first position. And there is something in another bucket of the ring. So in both rings, we have now one bunch. And we are doing some special tests. Today, for example, this morning we were testing the response of the BLMs. The BLMs are the monitors that measure the particles that are lost in every point of the machine, which are very important to guarantee the safety of the machine, because if you lose too many particles at very high energy, they might damage some electronic components. So we were checking the response of these BLM, being loss monitors. And this is just part of the qualification of the verification that we do in this phase.
Great. So the next question we've just got through is, what is your biggest challenge for the coming year, for 2017?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Well, I must say that we went through so many challenges that now maybe the most challenging one is trying to keep the concentration, once you run this machine and you run it continuously and you find that it is always working very well, you try to relax and assume that everything is working so fine that maybe at a certain point you try to the risk is that you neglect some important aspects of the machine, some safety element or whatever. So we need to be focused all along the year, because we need this machine to run safely and to run at a very high level of availability to get the
and that's safely for the machine. The
safely
machine
for the machine, of course.
It's such an expensive, complex piece of machinery. You can't, if something goes wrong, then
it's an important element. In fact, we never put the safety of people in danger. What we compromise eventually, if we lose control of the beam or if we have some problem, is only the electronic component, some component in the machine. But safety of people is always guaranteed by all the automatic safety elements of the machine. But of course, if we do some wrong manipulation, we might risk breaking some component, and it is all not nice to
I think Laurette might have a minute for us now. So, Laurette, would it be okay if I just asked you a couple of questions? Yes. Sorry for interrupting you on your... Getting the microphone caught up. So we're interrupting Laurette now in the middle of her... at the beginning of your shift. You've just taken over from Mirko, haven't you? So Laurette is currently the engineer in charge, and we're coming now to ask some questions live from the control centre at CERN, because the LHC restarted on Saturday for the first time. It has proton beams in 2017. So Laurette, could you tell me a bit about what some of these screens are, what you're doing here today, what an engineer in charge does?
So our charge is to make sure that the machine is performing as it is expected to perform.
Yeah.
So when we are asked to provide a special beam, we make everything to have the special beam in. When there is an access request or intervention to be done, then we have also we are in charge of putting the machine in a state that people can enter, etc. So that this is really preparing the machine for what it is asked to do.
Yeah. So the restart happened on Saturday. What's happened with the machine since then?
Oh, since then we've made a long, a big progress indeed. So Saturday we just made the two beams circulating. Since then we already commissioned the first RAM, so we have brought back the beam at top energy. And then we also yesterday commissioned the first quiz, so we will concentrate, reduce the beam size at the collisions to produce higher rate of collisions.
Okay.
This has been performed last evening. And today we are again continuing this commissioning, so we're going to another step, checking some instrumentation, checking systems functionality, etc.
Mm-hmm. So we've just had a question from Mike on Facebook, and he wanted to know, when will collisions happen? You were just talking about the higher rate of collisions.
So the collisions, we need a bit of time to put them in the planning. We expect to be in collisions, so to test the collision within 2 weeks or 3 weeks. The first stable beam, if it is the question, so really a collision for physics, so that the experiment takes data, will be a bit later, will be around 4 weeks from now.
Okay, fantastic. And we've also got quite a few questions coming in. People can see all the bottles on the wall. Could you explain a bit about them?
Well, if you look a bit closer on each bottle, there is a dedicated, customized stickers. Mm-hmm. So they are indeed celebrating all the different steps that we have made into this machine. So really the first time we put protons in, the first time we accelerate them, the first time we collide. On Saturday, indeed, we got some bottles from the first splashes of 2017. So every steps in the progression of the
So
machine.
You've already got a bottle from this year.
We already got 2 bottles. And each experiments also bring generally when they have also reached a milestone for their detectors, so in their data taking, etc. So we are celebrating every little step in the life of the machine.
Great, that's fantastic. It's such a nice thing to see, the celebrations.
We are lacking some space now.
So the next question I've just got through is talking about the collisions. People want to know, do you capture an actual picture of the collision or just graphs and data? So I think that's a question for the experiments more, isn't it?
It would be more for the experiments. I mean, from here, what we make sure is that we try to provide maximum number of collisions. Then the way it is captured and registered, I think it's better to ask to the experiment side really how it goes.
Mm-hmm. I guess it's because people can just see the graphs here, but the actual experiment collision is an event display normally,
yes,
isn't it?
Exactly.
So
indeed, if you look at all the screens, the only one which really gives a feature of an idea of what's going on in the experiments is the third one on the top, where we do have the collision rate displayed. All the other screens are more giving data about what's going on into the machine. So it's really our job here is really to make sure that we optimize the collision rate. The rest is more on the other side in the control room of the experiments where we were a few weeks ago.
Yeah. So the next question is, will these collisions harm our Earth? And that comes from Luciano on Facebook. Will the collisions harm our Earth? So it's a question about safety, I think.
No, the collisions. Sorry, I'm not sure I got the questions. No, it doesn't harm. I mean, it's harming the lifetime of the protons. So because the intensity of the beam is degrading when we are colliding, but for the rest, the machine is designed to provide collision, so it's not harming anything.
Mm-hmm. And the final question I think it is can the LHC create any mini black holes?
Oh, that's no. That's not well. I'm not really a deep physicist in that sense. No, we are not providing creating black holes. Okay. Strictly speaking, when we do collisions at very high energy, this could be considered as black hole, but better to ask for a physicist. We are providing collisions. Yeah. Yes, in that aspect, I would prefer to say that no, there's no black hole into the LHC. We are protons, and we are providing collisions for the data taking.
Great. I think that's everything for now. I'm just going to double check that we haven't got any more questions for Mirko, but thank you very much, Laurette. So we've talked a bit to Laurette about the for this one. We've talked a bit to Laurette about what's going on as for an engineer in charge, about the collisions, and about the some of the screens. So I've got one more question for you, and it's from 3 different people have asked, what are the new upgrades that CERN has done this year after the winter shutdown? But I think a better question would be, what are the upgrades? Most of them were done for the high Lumi LHC, weren't they? So could you tell us just a little bit about that?
Yeah, it is not only, it is not for this year, but essentially we're already working for the future. This year I said what we are trying to do is, let's say, put in a safe situation the collection of data for this year, so making maintenance, and also for CMS they were already working for the improved performance of the future, but there is not much more that has been done on the machine side. We are working outside of the LHC. We are working on the future of the LHC, on what you were saying, the iLumi project. So essentially the objective from here to 2025 is to produce magnets. We are going to replace roughly 3 kilometers of the ring, so 1/10 of the ring of the LHC.
Like you were talking about earlier with how the process of replacing that single magnet, but for much more of the ring. Yes.
So in 2019 and 2020, we are going to first do a first step in increase of performance by changing a lot in the injector complex. We are going to improve the performance of the injectors so that they will be able to we will be able to inject into the LHC double the intensity with respect to what we are doing now. Then for 2024-2025, we're going to replace what is called the long shutdown free. We're going to replace, as I said, 3 kilometers of the ring, just close to the high luminosity experiments, Atlas and CMS. We're going to replace the magnets there, put in more powerful magnets that will be able to squeeze down to reduce the size of the beam inside the experiment even further, and then increasing the luminosity and having even more collisions per second. So essentially, we should be able to increase the performance of the LHC, ideally by factor 10, roughly by a factor 5.
And that's in 2025, from 2025.
2026, when we resume operation, we should be able to run at this new luminosity, which will be a factor times with respect to what we are doing now.
Great. Thanks very much, Mirko. That's time for us. Thanks so much for watching. Feel free to ask any more questions. If they're about collisions, I think we'll be doing a future Facebook Live to hopefully answer some of those questions. And if we have any more questions that we haven't answered, we'll hopefully get some of our experts to be able to answer them in the Facebook comment section. You can find out more about some of the things we've been discussing on the website, which is home.cern, or follow us on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. Thank you very much. Thanks, Mirko.
Bye-bye.
Bye.